Cześć przyjaciele, witam na kanale, mam na imię Rob, jestem Anglik i uczę się polskiego. Welcome to the channel, my name's Rob, and in today's video we are not just going back to medieval times in Poland, we are going back to ancient times and see what happened and how things formed. If you do enjoy this video, then you know what to do. Go down there, hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed for plenty more. Ancient History with robreacts. Check this guy out, the Ancient History guy. Got some good videos.
Although not as in-depth as Western Europe, Eastern Europe has its fair share of ancient history. One of the more mysterious is that of the land that would be known as Poland. This is the ancient history of Poland. Poland, unlike most of Europe, had a bit of a prolonged Stone Age. This was mainly because the area suffered greatly from unpredictable mini ice ages. One minute the land would be habitable, the next minute it would be covered in ice. Eventually, a prolonged warming period gave the migrating people of the Danube River the chance to start migrating into the region, beginning around 5500 BC. These migrants from the Danube brought with them their semi-nomadic lifestyle, a lifestyle that eventually morphed into a more permanent one, allowing the once nomads to start farming.
If you look at Poland now, or Eastern Europe, I am saying Eastern Europe, you get the idea. You do still see those sort of areas, not just Poland, but as farming country. There's a lot of farming, and it does seem like it hasn't developed quite as quickly. Now, whether that's a historical thing, whether that's a land geography thing, I don't know. But clearly then it's saying that obviously it suffered from a lot longer of an ice age than maybe other parts of the world.
This seemed to have influenced the somewhat scattered populations in Poland, who also started farming, copying the newcomers. This occurred sometime between 4000 and 2000 BC. Naturally, this settled lifestyle led to the development of bronze smelting. This seems to have been pioneered in Poland by the Unetist culture. These people left a large amount of this newfound metal. They also covered a wide range of territory, with a subgroup settling in Poland. By the late Bronze Age, the Lucian culture came to be the dominant culture in the region. These people had close contact with their neighbours, specifically the Nordic and Celtic cultures, influencing particularly the designs of their weaponry.
When you think of the sort of the cultures that were around in that part, you think of, well, I would think of the Gauls and those nomadic tribes, and because of the locations, close to what we now call Germany, close to the Scandinavian parts, you think that those sort of locations would sort of merge, but it's such a large area. Now we have, billions of people on this planet. Back then, we did not. It's gone up. What do you call it? What's the term? Compound. It's sort of like compound interest, and that's what's happened. But back then, they wouldn't have necessarily been seeing every tribe every day, would they? And that's probably what it was. It was lots of different tribes that had their own techniques, their own languages, and they wouldn't have necessarily seen each other every day. Now, whether or not they traded or whether or not they fought for more land or whatnot, I don't know. It was probably a mix of both. But I think what we're hearing now makes sense, and probably a lot of us would have thought anyway.
This culture eventually transitioned into the Iron Age, building an impressive walled settlement called Biskupin. However, the Lusitians were virtually wiped out by a series of Scythian invasions beginning in the 6th century BC. As Poland and Europe moved into the time frame known as Classical Antiquity, the land seems to have become a hodgepodge of various peoples. Most prominent were the Celts, Germans and Baltic peoples, although there is some evidence that by this time a small group of Slavic people have begun to settle in the region. Poland at this time seems to have been more of a materialistic culture, with large princely graves from this period being common. Perhaps the most important group to arrive in Poland during this time was that of the Goths, who migrated down a river from their native Germanic lands, conquering a small region for themselves, and then, after a few years, decided to up and leave, heading towards the Baltic.
We've discussed this in a previous video about how Poland actually is not great when it comes to war because the land is so flat, but even these days it's quite good for transport, for travel. You know, it's good because it's so flat and easy to get across. Now, that would probably mean that actually tribes were able to travel, people were able to settle, and therefore you are going to get a real mix of different tribes and types of people there. Now, you compare that to places like Australia, you know, where even in the 1800s, it was so difficult to get wherever they wanted because it was so, there's the big mountain range, the Great Divide, and therefore you can't. But it's the opposite for us, for Poland, and even back thousands of years ago, movement and travel was a lot simpler, vast but simpler.
By 500 AD, pretty much all of the Germans who had settled in the regions began a mass migration towards richer lands, taking advantage of the fact that the nearby Western Roman Empire had just collapsed. This left the Baltics as the dominant group in Poland. However, they had always been on the fringes, and they seemed to have stayed that way. With the land open for anyone to claim it, Poland saw a gradual increase of Slavs arriving from the region known as Polesia, roughly on the borders between Belarus, Ukraine, Western Russia, and far eastern Poland. In the following centuries, a majority of Poland would be settled by these Slavs, who after a few years of settling into the region, eventually formed dozens of scattered Polish tribes by the beginning of the 8th century. These tribes would eventually unite a few centuries later, forming the state that is today known as Poland.
Well, there you go. That's. I think a lot of it makes sense, but it brings the question into what is being Polish, in a sense that actually over thousands of years you can see how many different tribes and people have actually lived in Poland. I always find it fascinating with the United Kingdom, with our island, that actually nowadays will be very difficult to invade, right? But back then, you know, when there wasn't as many people and there wasn't as good a defense, you know, we had France coming over, we had the Danes coming over, we had so many different types of people come across. Now imagine that with Poland, where it's so easy to move. So what is a Pole? What is the history and what is the lineage of a Polish person nowadays? Because actually there were so many different types of people, you know, it's mad to think actually how many there were. And I think you see what happened after the Roman Empire fell, that the riches, you know, were in certain parts. I just think it's fascinating, the different types of people, you know, and it shows that actually Poland seems to have had conflict for such a long time, even before what we talk about now, because there were riches, there was invasions, there was so much, but obviously on a smaller basis for sure. It's just fascinating, isn't it, to look back so far. You know, people have been on this planet for a long, long time. I think the difference is it was probably on a lot smaller scale. Everything took a lot longer because it's by foot, by horse. Tribes are smaller. It's not the same as today with the amount of people on this planet. But I think I think what we probably think is about right, probably. But there you go. There is the history, short history of ancient Poland. I hope you enjoyed that. It's just a small, fun one for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please do, like I said, make sure you like and subscribe for plenty more. I'm off to Warsaw, so that'll be fun. Make sure you catch the next one. Go to Charlie and Rob to see our vlogs in Poland and other places around the world. And I'll catch you next time. Do widzenia.